Technology is scaling, the teams are growing, but the systems that support the people, that still needs a bit of work. Across Africa's startup and SME landscape, the promise of digital transformation is still very much alive, but underneath that momentum lies a quieter chaos. It being misclassified contractors, manual payrolls, missed compliance deadlines, to say the least. The future is global, distributed, and digital, but the infrastructure that supports it is still very analog. In 2022, over 55% of startups in Africa either operated remote or in a hybrid model, with employees spanning multiple countries. Yet, less than 30% had streamlined systems for handling cross-border payroll, taxes, and benefits. The results, as expected, delayed fines, burnouts for the operations teams, and at scale, a broken trust loop between employers and their employees. So, as a founder or someone in operations, how do you make sure that you're still building without losing sleep or compliance along the way? Paul Kimani is quietly re-architecting how Africa works. As co-founder and CEO of WorkPay, Paul is on a mission to build the infrastructure that connects talent to opportunity and employers to peace of mind. Whether it's handling statutory compliance in Kenya or streamlining contractors' payments in Senegal, WorkPay is fast becoming the invisible backbone of Africa's modern workforce. As a first-time founder, Paul has proven what's possible when vision meets execution. He's an alumnus of the prestigious YCombinator program, and recently, WorkPay secured $5 million in Series A funding, led by Norskin 22 and joined by Visa, Plug and Pay, and other top-tier investors. This, a major milestone in the mission to empower African employers and workers alike. Paul Kimani, it's really good to see you again. The last time we had a conversation was at, what is it? It was at the Tech Safari
event, yeah.
And here you were on the podcast again. How have you been?
I've been great. Thank you so much for inviting me, and looking forward to the conversation.
Looking forward to the conversation as well.
Yeah.
So how do you build a HR system for 50 plus tax laws, currencies, and compliance rules?
Yeah, so I think, let me just start off by saying, even building for one country is not easy.
Of course.
So it's, if you think about HR and payroll, it's actually a compliance tool. So what that means is that you're not only helping businesses to figure out their internal operations, but also most importantly, you're helping them to be compliant. So if you think about building it for 50 plus countries, what that means is that you need to figure out how do you understand the 50 plus compliance rules that are there. So there are a number of ways that you do it, or at least how we have done it is number one, you have to really invest a lot, upfront to be able to understand how do taxes and how do compliance work in all these countries, and then from there you build block by block. If I use our example, is that we started with Kenya, for example, really built here for a couple of years, 2 or so, and really understood exactly how taxes work. My background is engineering, so it was also sort of a deep diving in terms of trying to understand taxes, trying to understand HR stuff. And then once we did that in one market, really understood that, and then we added one more country, which was Nigeria, and then we now tested, are there similarities that allow us not to start from scratch when you're getting into the second market, and then now you're able to build on top of what you learned in your first market. We did that for 2-3 countries, and then from there, what we have learned, the taxes, the compliance requirements are quite different, but they're actually patterns that we're able to follow. Or you can, figure out, for example, there are things that are similar in Kenya, to South Africa, that are similar to Uganda and the like. So what we have been able to build, which is really amazing, is build this back-end engine that allows us to sort of spin off a payroll for one country instead of taking months. It takes us weeks. But then the work that went into that is 3-4 years before we figured out how to be able to build what we're able to spin on right now. So it's a lot of things in place. It's not just this engineering work where you're able to build the software, but also a lot of admin work, a lot of finance understanding, a lot of understanding how taxes works in each and every country, and also just understanding the implication of why that has to be right every time. Yeah.
So you're affirming that the hardest part is the beginning.
100%, because they say like doesn't go wrong, starts wrong. So if you're able to like figure out like starting the right way and build the right foundation in terms of what you're able to build on top of that, I think to me that's super important, especially because you're building something that is scalable. When you're building a tech company, you want to build something that's scalable. So what that means is like when I'm getting to country number 20, I don't need to use the same effort I used when I was building country number 1. So I want to get to country number 20, I want to probably even use less than 10% of the effort that I did that. So what that means is like there's a lot of front loading of work that you have to do before you even like sort of even step out and start building for one country.
Between 2022 and 2024, the number of African startups with remote or distributed teams more than doubled as talent sought flexibility and companies expanded across borders. A recent Endeavor report states that payroll compliance and HR management remain top pain points for growth stage companies, often leading to inefficiencies, regulatory penalties, and talent churn. Platforms like WorkPay are emerging to close that gap, automating payroll, handling tax compliance, and enabling borderless hiring the right way. And it's not just an African issue. Studies have shown that when you get the payroll right, you unlock trust, retention, and real growth. In Africa, getting it right could mean something bigger. People don't just find jobs, they stay, they grow, and they thrive. You've called WorkPay the infrastructure layer of African work. I want to know what that actually means on a day-to-day execution and business operations level.
Absolutely. I think for you to understand that, probably to even point out what exactly we do and what we are helping businesses to do is we are building solutions or products actually help businesses to, number one, stay compliant regardless of where they're hiring from within the continent. And then number two, to be able to pay the employees within the continent regardless of how they want to pay those employees.
Yes.
So what that means is like what we are building is that layer of that infrastructure that helps think of a business in Kenya. They find an amazing talent in Nigeria and another amazing talent in where? Angola. How do they figure out how to even pay those employees there? How do they even figure out how taxes in Angola look like? So what we are doing or what we have done is to build that infrastructure that allows businesses to ride on top of that and be able to now offer those, or rather do those functions and on their side. The reason we also call it infrastructure is that our next phase of growth and what we are doing right now is we're not only building it for businesses, we're also building it for other businesses to be able to layer it on top of their services. So think of any B2B software that when are serving businesses in all these markets, they can actually just using our product be able to start offering, for example, payroll to the businesses that they are servicing to, and that allows them to, number one, increase their their business, their addressable market, and then number two, be able to layer and ring fence their customers because they're able to offer them more services. So for us, it's basically our belief is that opportunities are not always available in one market, but talent, our belief, is all over the continent. So if the opportunities are in Kenya and the talent is in Nigeria, yes, we have to believe that can that opportunity in Kenya leverage that talent in Nigeria, be able to do their work. Yeah.
So what goes wrong when you use a platform like WhatsApp to pay above 200 plus employees?
Oh gosh, a lot of things could go wrong in that aspect. So number one, we are Kenyans. We have been here for so long, and sometimes we are so spoiled because of the way some things happen. Like I want to pay somebody, I'm just going to go to my M-Pesa and send them money. You understand how hard it is when you are trying to just send 3 countries at the same time. So if today you have an employee in Kenya, in Cote d'Ivoire, in Zambia, that's how you realize how difficult it is to actually do that. So number one challenge is like, how are you even going to deliver that payment? So that's quite hard. That is number one. Number two is that how are you going to be able to deliver that payment in a more compliant manner? How are you going to help your employee to be compliant so that you're not just leaving the burden to them to figure out how to be compliant on their end? So that compliance is also something that you care about from the word go. So there are tools that you could use. There are even, you could even use money remittance services that you can actually do that, but are you actually being compliant in the way you are doing that? And also when you now put more than one country is never that straightforward. Can take, between a week, even sometimes 2 weeks to be able to send money to some countries. And the thing with salaries, is quite emotional. Like everybody is very, very emotionally attached to their salary. So if I know my colleagues in Kenya are paid on 25th, it's not going to sit well with me when it is 5th and I've not received my money. Even though I know my employer has sent the money, I'm not going to feel comfortable about that. So those are some of the things that we help the businesses to do. Like, if regardless of where the employees are, we're able to help them to pay them almost at the same time. So of course there are a lot of things that we have to do on our end to be able to do that, but it's quite difficult in this continent and it's quite very cumbersome, but that's what we're excited about building in the space.
I think one word to encompass what you're describing is automation and trying to make systems more seamless. Can you walk us through how WorkPay, automates some of these statutory deductions, multi-currency payments, and tax filings across the multiple countries that you're involved in?
The keyword is partnerships. We are not a payment company. We are just orchestrating those payments. We are just helping business to be able to do them. And if you think about even the way taxes are done, like even in a country like Kenya or Nigeria, wherever, there's a lot of manual work that happens on the background. So what we do is now build a layer on top of that manual work and be able to help businesses to automate that process. So we not only work with partners who are people who help us to be able to do the filing in some of these countries, but also we work a lot with a lot of payment partners. So because we have to have a lot of redundancies. So for example, again, if you are paying to country A, we try to deliver your salary using partner A. You have to, if that doesn't work, you have to try partner B. So what we have done is sort of build a lot of partnerships, both tech and people, on the background that allows you as a customer to be able not to feel that manualness in terms of where you are doing it, but then we have automated that for you, as I say, using people and technology.
My next question plays into the saying that the data point that over 70% of Africa is unbanked or doesn't have access to digital payments. And so no smartphone, no bank. How do you pay a worker within a rural setting?
I don't know whether unbanked is the right word. I really say that most of them are not banked, because what I've found is that people have a way to be able to receive payments. Rarely do we find somebody who is not able to receive their money. Because you're a digital platform, what that means is you have to have a way to receive the money digitally. That's the bottom line of what we do. So are you going to receive it via mobile money, for example? We have the rails that allows you to receive the money via mobile money. Are you going to receive it via a bank account? Are you going to receive it via a wallet? Because there are all these wallets that have been built in different countries. We allow you to be able to do that. So what we usually find is that some people would start maybe receiving their money via mobile money, and then over time they transition to bank accounts, which is quite interesting to us, because some of the things that we are building on top of our payroll infrastructure is that we're actually building financial services. Because some of these, think of, for example, when we are starting, we served a lot of people in the caliber of private security guards, for example. Those companies hire in thousands, for example. One of the things that we helped them earlier on is just to digitize those payments for those guards, right? So what that does is when they start using us, you essentially technically bank that person. So if they were actually receiving money via cash, from day one they start receiving money via M-Pesa, and then they realize, oh, if I receive this money to my dormant bank account, they can go and activate the bank account. That puts them in the space where now they're able to start enjoying other financial services. Because if every month, even if it's a very little amount of money that they are receiving, that means that money is hitting their bank account every month. So the bank now sees them as a customer that they can actually start lending. They can now start, proposing some saving products and those kind of things. And the very, very exciting product that we are, want to build on top of WorkPay in terms of, can we build other financial products on top of that? So we are very, very intentional in we can only deliver payments digitally. There are so many opportunities or services out there that people can use, even if you don't want to open a bank account, which I have found that most people are okay opening. It's only that maybe there were no way that they were actually receiving that money via that channel. Maybe the employer was okay paying cash, but if the employer insists you have to be paid digitally, they definitely will find a way for them to be paid. And then that to me is an amazing journey in terms of what happens from there, in terms of the endless opportunity that this person gets to experience after that.
What you're providing is access, which is, I think, a bigger problem than what I mentioned, which is the underbanked aspect of people. And it's true that maybe the underbanked is not the right word. It's, I would say, access would be the issue, and education of it. And so if there's a system in which I don't necessarily have to know what it is that I'm doing, but I'm able to use a platform like WorkPay and still be able to get these, maybe a bank account or an M-Pesa or what, depending on what the use case is in the different countries, then I think that is a good, powerful initiative that you have. Could you give us more? You've given an example of the police documentation system. Payroll. Payroll system that you gave. I want to know a story that caught your attention, or you would like to share, that you would say that, yes, this was a moment where I felt the impact of the work that I do.
I think there are many in terms of what we do. I think the one that I like giving is once I took my car to a car wash, and I was wearing a WorkPay t-shirt, and somebody came to me and I was like, okay, do you know these guys? I'm like, oh, I know them. How do you know them? And he was like, oh, they're actually the ones that actually pay us. And since we started getting paid via them, we are always paid on time. And that was really powerful. So the impact on what we do, just to that example, is that what we try to do is that, and which is part of our, our mission, that we help business to pay the employees on time every time. So the reason why that is quite important is that if you think about an employee, they work for a whole month or for a whole 2 weeks, depending on their pay cycle, and then that money is what they rely or they wait for them to be able to literally to survive, regardless of whether they are paid very little or someone who is paid in millions. All of them, if you are paid as an employee, you rely on that salary for you to be able to do things. And if you work in this continent, we all understand the aspect of black tax and everything. The truth of the matter is your salary is not only you or your immediate family that depends on that money. There's a lot of people who depend on your money, from whatever you send to your family, to your landlords, to your wherever you buy your groceries, to your school where you pay your school fees. So for us, we look at it from that angle, that it's not just pay that is being paid. It's very, very different from you paying for your rent. When you're paying salary, it's almost sacred in the sense that it has to be delivered on time. And I always remind my team that if we are the ones that are going to delay for someone to be paid, it means a lot of things. It means for example, there's a father who was waiting for that money to pay hospital bill for their kids to be to be released from hospital. There's a parent who was waiting for that money for them to go pay school fees for their kids. And there are people who are waiting to go and pay rent and those kind of things, and they probably be locked out of house. So we look at it like it's actually a very, very sacred kind of payment, and the impact that we look for is not just the people who we are directly paying, is what do they do with the money once they receive that money, and how are they getting that money? Is it in a dignified manner? I give an example. I have an engineering background, and I used to work as a project manager, and one of the things that we used to do back then, we would have this construction workers and the like, and at the end of the month or at the end of the week, we would just have them line up and then we'd pay them via cash, which is really not the right way. It's not a dignified way of people getting paid. So that's one of the things that we think is quite important. People receive their hard-earned money in a dignified manner. I always remind myself as an employer and other employers that always remember that when you're paying that employee, you're not doing them a favor. You're actually paying them for a service that they have actually rendered to you, and you have to, once you understand that, then it also becomes quite important to you why it has to be paid on time, and not just one time, but every time these employees have to be paid on time.
Now, Paul, aside from the altruistic angle, which you've very elaboratively expressed to us, as an employer, why would I use WorkPay as opposed to getting my accountant that is known, friend of a friend of a friend, to do my accounting or payroll?
Yeah, good question. So one of the things that why you would use us as a business is like you're looking for two things. So number one, you're looking on how do you improve efficiency as a business, and then number two, everyone is looking on how to save on cost and be able to be still going back to the efficiency thing is like we help you. So number one, we don't essentially say we want you to replace your accountant. We don't want you to replace your HR person. We want you to empower your accountant and the HR person to be able to be so efficient. They're going to be focusing on things that actually matter, where they actually need to be doing. You don't hire like a really smart person for them to just be doing admin work, for them to be just doing things that machines can do. Why not let the machines do the things that can be done by the machine, and then this person does the work that they actually be able to be focusing on. And then the other thing is like what that does is like then it casts your cost in terms of like the overhead that you might probably need to have at the time. So this goes back to even in terms of retention. Like I mentioned, like if you're doing some of these things manually, if you have a very, very big workforce, at this true story, this can take you all the way to like 2 weeks. Think of, for example, a supermarket, which are some of our customers, where for them to pay their people, there are a lot of processes. They have to collect data, time and attendance. That data has to be processed into payroll. That payroll has to be approved. Once it's approved, it has to be sent to the bank. That whole process would take like 2 weeks, and then just using our system is a day or a few hours work, because then this is not something that we are sitting and starting doing. The machine, because it's there, it's doing these things on a continuous basis. Every time I clock in as an employee, that's recorded, that is put in my payroll. So when the payroll person comes to pay, they're just paying. So that does not only cut costs, brings efficiency, but also brings like a lot of value, not only to you as an employer, but to your employee. And that talks to retention, talks to happy workforce, and talks to when all of them are happy, means like, there's improvement even in terms of the work that they are doing.
You've talked very highly about the power of automation and getting people to prioritize what it is that they need to in their job positionings. I'm curious to know if you're worried about AI replacing a company like yours.
I'm actually excited about AI. And the reason why I'm at the point of I'm excited, like it's happening. There's no going back. It's probably, I've not seen so many technological events happening, but this one that has met me at this stage of my life, I think is so powerful. It's so amazing. So I think for me, AI is going to be really change a lot, not only how we work, but even just how we live. And it's us to just figure out how do we leverage that in terms of improving what we do, starting even from our lives, how we live, how do we use AI to do that. And now as service providers or as builders of products, we have to figure out how do we use AI to be able to build better products, to build faster, to add more value to the products we are building, and be able to give more services to our customers and give them in a better way. So I think it's going to really improve and make building process better and easier. And then of course it's going to, the flip side is going to be harder. Like if building is easier, then you have to figure out then things like distribution, things like execution are going to be like even more important if you think about it as a founder, because anybody then can build. How do people execute? How do people distribute? You have to think about it from that angle. And then the other one is like, the truth of the matter is also going to take some jobs. I think we have to, again, be honest. But then on the flip side is like, is it going to take jobs and also create some other jobs? Is it going to improve lives for people? Are there things that we do that we don't need to do? Again, going to the point of automation are things that I wake up every day and do that probably don't need to do. I think you have to, as a human being, in my opinion, and also as a business leader, I think you have to get to a place where you are thinking like, how do I leverage this amazing technology? How do I make it like an advantage to my business, as opposed to sit down and figure out, oh, this thing is going to like kick me out. Yeah, if you sit there and don't do anything, it's definitely going to do that.
It's definitely always about perspective and mindset.
Yeah.
If you let it take your job, then it will take your job,
Yeah,
rather than adapting to what is already happening.
Yeah.
Speaking of leadership, I want to take it back to your individual journey. How does someone like you in engineering who knows nothing about finances end up being the founder of such a powerful product like WorkPay?
Yeah, so first we hit 6 years last month.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so we have been there for a while now. I think entrepreneurship is a mindset, and you have to believe that you can actually build something that is bigger than you and something that has impact, not only to your life, but also to people, around you, or even just basically the community. And for me, I think that was sort of the driving force. Like when I started building a dev shop, for example, just building for people to just need to understand how I can build a company. And then, eventually I was able to build the company that I have to. So I think for me is first getting into a place where you understand that it's going to be a very, very hard journey. Building was not building and maybe working, in a company, in a corporate. That's, it's still hard for you to even still move up the ladder of your corporate, but then you have to understand that a different hard when it comes to building, and just probably accept it from the word go. And then from there, I think the hardest problem is just getting that problem that you want to solve, because when you are a builder, sometimes you can even be building things for yourself, not necessarily solving problems. So I think that figuring out a problem that is painful enough for people to want to pay you to solve it for them, I think that also becomes a bit of a problem. And then from there, again, it's especially for first-time founders like myself, then you have to keep on improving yourself, learning.
You were a first-time founder.
Yeah,
that's a rare journey.
Yeah, it's a rare one. It's a difficult one, but then you have to also keep on trying to build yourself, improve yourself, put yourself in a space that allows you to grow. This could be people, this could be the material that you consume, this could be the spaces that you put yourself into, and that's the way you're able to grow. And then probably one of the things that I've come to appreciate now that we have grown this much is then you have also to really build a really, really strong team around you that allows you, to leverage their experience, their superpowers, and then, you move up together, because you'll get to a level where when you're starting, you are sort of doing everything, you are, orchestrating everything within the organization. But as you continue growing, things become harder and harder. Then you need people, or what I call pillars, to be able to help you to keep on standing as you continue building. So it has to be a lot of people discussion around you. Are you getting into spaces where people are building to be able to learn from their building journeys? Are you getting leaders within the organization that help you to build, and also you getting into spaces where you're able to learn as a leader?
And why isn't skill the first thing founders should look for?
I think in hindsight, which I was lucky to have, is that if you can, I know there's different schools of thoughts on this, if you can get a co-founder, I think it makes the journey easier, because it's quite hard, even sometimes as a founders, we get into a space where I think we're about to invent something quite amazing. I think sometimes it's also good to just have somebody who you bounce these things with, or somebody you just journey with. I think if you can, I think probably that would be the single advice that I can give, especially a first-time founder. If you can get a co-founder, I think that would make the journey a little bit bearable.
You would make the journey bearable.
Yeah.
Do you say you started this journey alone as a solo founder, and along the way you found your co-founder? I do find it difficult when you start the journey alone, and how to even start looking for a co-founder.
Yeah. So I started there. So as I mentioned, before I built this company, I was running a dev shop. So when I started, I code, I do all those kind of things. So I was building software and systems for businesses. And then I brought in a friend of mine in that first business. It was not a startup, it was like a proper business. There's such a word, that I was running just for profit, not venture backed or anything. So I brought in a friend of mine who we were in school with, who came in that business, started working with me. And then from there, now we co-founded WorkPay together. Mm-hmm. So my lesson there is when you are doing whatever you are doing, either you're in school or you are at work, working in a certain company, or just going on with your life, that's where you probably find co-founders, because you need somebody who you can really go through ups and downs, somebody who you can actually trust even when things are not dictating you to do so, somebody who you know that you can actually go with in the long haul in terms of like during those very, very hard times, and then people you can even have those very hard conversations with when things are tough. So if you are able to date them as a co-founder without necessarily dating them as a co-founder, because then you're looking at them at the lens of a human being. So we are friends, we are in the same school, we are family friends, we are colleagues at work. So we are not talking at that point of where we can run business together. We are just talking about anything and everything. So when we get to the business point when hey, want us to build a business together, then that becomes easier because there are already some things I've seen in this person that I already like. Probably you already know their weaknesses, that I know this is going to be a problem. So we talk about it upfront if possible, and then that helps you. So, but then there are also scenarios whereby I find myself today, I want to build a business and I don't have those kind of people in my life. I don't know who I can go to and ask them to be my co-founder. Then in that case, again, there are platforms and there are places that you can go to. You can go to, for example, you can go to where tech networking events where you can now meet some of these people who are also trying to build and see whether you can build together. I think also you can go to platforms like, there's a YC, actually founders matching platform. I should say we are a YC company. So you can go to YC platform where they actually match co-founders, and you can just say actually what you're looking for and actually match you with a co-founder. And this is again a global kind of a community where you get into people who are actually building. So I think for me it's just putting yourself out there and looking for other people who are also putting themselves out there. And then, of course, there'll be a process on how do you, date each other and figure out whether you guys are a match to be able to usually say you figuring out to do this together for 10, 15 years. Yeah. So you have to understand that is what this means. It's not like 1 year or 2 years, it's 10, 15 years. If you guys are successful, that's the time probably is going to take you guys to be working together.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with the correlation of looking for a co-founder to dating, because it is a relationship that you're getting into for a long period of time. And also within the same breath, people will see maybe it's the person who has been by your side all along. Yeah. And quite frankly, might be the best person rather than a stranger. Maybe you're aligned on the values on work values, but there are a lot of things that come with a relationship like this. There's a lot of even just understanding and humanization of this individual rather than just this person that I work with. Yeah. I think my last question for you is, you've been part of key accelerator programs that you've mentioned like YC and have been backed by some heavy hitters like MasterCard recently. How would you say you've managed to balance growth expectations, especially for the kind of businesses that you're working with the VC model raising right now? At least what I know is there's a lot of heavy negative sentiments towards potentially not looking towards VC funding for African startups, given the expectation of quick growth. Yeah. But I want to know from your personal experience how you were able to manage both relationships and still manage to build WorkPay to where it is now.
Absolutely. So I think that's an excellent question. So I think you have to be really clear on what kind of business you are building from the word go, because that determines on what path you're going to take. So there are businesses that are clearly not VC
backable.
Yeah. And if you try to go that route, it's going to be like pain down the road for both of you, the VC and yourself. But there are some other businesses that if you are really serious that you want to build like a very, very big business, you really definitely need to have cash up front. And it's going to be a painful journey if you want to build a bootstrap kind of a business. So you have to really understand that from the word go. So for us, we wanted to really, sometimes I say we were stupid enough to think that it can actually build a Pan-African business, a SaaS company in this continent. There are not so many that we could look up to. Like you can say, you want to build a business like this. Always we are saying you want to build a business like this, either in the US, in Europe, Absolutely. And wherever. So those are the people that we are looking up to. But then we knew that for us to be able to be successful in this, we'll definitely need people to back us, and not only back us with cash, but also back us with experience, with having seen some of these things. So I like quoting one of our investors. They're called Arcadia. They're from the US. And this is a VC fund that has been built by people who have either operators and investors only in the HR and payroll space. These are people who have worked tens of years in SAP, Workday, think of any big software companies. And what that kind of experience gives us is, number one, exposure in terms of being able to be in the same rooms with people who are like really building what you're building at a very, very big scale. So in that case, we are not only getting the advantage of cash, but also getting the advantage of experience, the advantage of exposure, even in terms of trying to understand and learn how to actually build scalable SaaS businesses, even in the market where SaaS is not very, very popular. Software as a service, I should say that. So for us, that was clear that we need to build a VC business. And from the word go, we knew we wanted to raise money. Then the next question was like, who do we raise the money from? My biggest struggles were trying to raise seed. When we were trying to very, very early on to raise our first check was very, very tough. And that's probably an area of improvement as an ecosystem here in this region, where we could probably have more seed capital that is very patient, that understands what investing in tech is. It's not the same way investing in a sort of traditional kind of business where you invest today, tomorrow you're getting some dividends or whatever. So people who understand that, and probably we are the people who have seen it can come back and try that kind of enjoy investing. So that was hard. But then once we got past that, I must say YC was very, very crucial and very, very important in our journey. So early on, we got into a YCombinator. Number one, we got into a community that is of builders. You are there in people. I remember in our batch, there were people who are building robots to go to the moon. And here I'm trying to build a solution to pay people in Africa. And you're in the same space. That does something to you and blows you, expands your mind in a way that you're able to really think big. We have a lot of unicorns in our batch. I was in the winter 2020 batch. There are so many multi-billion companies that are in our batch, and those are people who are, I would say, we are in the same community, people that I can reach out to, people that I can learn from, and then people who then you get to not only the community, but then you also get the VC who have also understand this journey in terms of made a lot of money in terms of this kind of model, and then they're able to back us. So we were very fortunate from the word go to get amazing investors. I have an investor who invested in seed, and they have invested all along, including our last round, which really amazing. They keep on backing us, they keep on believing on what we are doing. And for me, the most important thing is, number one, you have to back yourself as a founder, and you have to understand the fundamentals of a business. So at the end of the day, if you think about the very simple business, somebody who is selling grocery, at the end of the day is they have to spend a shilling and make 2 or make 1.5. So you have to really understand that that's the very basic understanding of a business. So even if I don't get VC money, this business is supposed to bring return. It has to bring return. It has to scale. Because return is important, because then if it can bring return, then you can actually scale it and scale the returns in terms of what. So if you're able to, and the only way to do that is if you are solving a problem, that is one. And then number two, the problem has to be big enough for people to be willing to give out their hand-earned money for you to solve that problem. And then after you do that, then investors and VCs is then, again, they're not giving you money. Let's be very honest. They are trying to make money, with what you're doing. So if they are giving you money to be able to build a business that you're having, that means that they should be able to be seeing how down the road they're going to make their money back, not times 2, probably times 3, times 10, especially those who come in at Angel. They are trying to see, if I give this guy X in 5, 3, 4 years, or even 10 years, I should be able to make 10X in terms of what I'm investing. So the responsibility is you as a founder. When you are going to pitch to investors, then you have to always understand that at the back of your mind, I'm taking this person's money because I'm going to return that money down the road a couple of times. So, and then what that means then is once you take somebody's money, then you now understand your responsibility now increases. You have to now know that you are responsible into ensuring that, they are, reporting to somebody in terms of like, how is the business doing? How are you guys progressing? And you have to find a balance, which we have been fortunate to find, that you have to find a balance in a way that you find a way to allow your investors to have an access to the business, and at the same time not being in a position where they are really pushing you in a certain direction, because the problem with that is then you end up start building products that you had not intention to do and taking some strategic direction that keeps on pushing you out or away from the vision that you had in building. So if you get like investors who like understand that they back you because this is the direction you sold to them, and you consistently execute in that direction, I believe they definitely back you in terms of helping you to succeed, because if you succeed, they are succeeding. If you fail, everybody is going home. So I think it's hard. I usually say it's hard, especially for founders in this part of the market, to say that you have to not only get the money, look at the value that you get from that investor. Sometimes it's very hard, if you have to be very honest, because by the time maybe you are getting that check from somebody, you have probably spoken to so many people. You are at the point of where I just need the check to come through. I just need the money to save my business for me to go to the next level. So sometimes you end up taking money probably you wish down the road you don't have taken. But it's part of the journey. Do I have money that I wished I would have not taken? 100%. But that money saved me at that particular time. I needed that money at that time. Now I have to figure out how do I live with that money, within the organization. But then again, as long as all of you are aligned in terms of growth, in terms of the strategic direction of the business, keep on communicating to them, keep on bringing them into the picture of what is happening. I don't think maybe they are there, I have not come across them, but any investor who is just out there to sort of mess you up, because if they mess you up, like, you're also going to be on their end. They are there to actually support you. I think the how is what matters. How they define support to you is what can be different.
The how is what matters is a good way for us to end this episode, Paul. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast and sharing your insights.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It has been amazing chatting with you.
Yes.